everyone, welcome to part 2. In this part, we are going to actually talk about the image tag and also its attributes. So the image tag, which you can put the img inside the bracket, is an empty HTML tag that can use to add an image to our web page. So the image doesn't have an ending image tag. It includes a lot of attributes such as, the source of the file, src. It shows where the file is being inserted from. And for example, you can put the img src equals to logo.png, for example. And that could be somewhere on your computer or on the server. So other attributes such as alt, it specified alternate text in case the image can't be displayed by a browser. You can actually see if you put a alt or alt in there, it can show, like if the image doesn't show, it can say, for example, if the image is about dog, if you put in the alt dog, the person can see that this image is about dog. And then you have the height and the width, the height, it defines the height of an image, and that's in pixel that we just talked about. And then the width, which is defines the width of the image, which is also in pixel. So these are basically the 4 attributes that we just talked about: src, alt, the width, and then the height. So each image can have these 4 attributes to it. So this is an example of the image with these attributes. As you can see, this is the source of the file, so logo.png, where maybe your file is. The alt, company.logo, so if this doesn't show up, if you put the company logo, they can at least know that this image is supposed to be a company logo. And then the height of it, which are in pixels, and the width. So you might say, like, how can I know the dimension of the image? You can actually open that graphic in some editor like Paint or Photoshop, or you can actually use the file's properties using the File Explorer or Finder, and you can see what is the actual image size. The next thing that we are going to talk about is about div element. What is the div element actually? So div element defines an area or division in a web page. In HTML5, we use this a lot, basically it can identify a specific area on the web page. So you can have a specific area such as the header, maybe it could be the navigation area or the main content and the footer, as we explained in the chapter 2. So these are just basically some specific area that you can use the div tag. So the div tag starts with div and then ends with the div tag. So you can also use it within the main element to divide that main element into smaller parts and pieces. So this actually shows a wireframe with having the 4 elements inside your main element. So we said that in HTML5 we can use the tag to specify the navigation area, the main area, the footer area, and in here the div elements we can actually have it divided into 4 parts. So you can actually use that div part to divide it into smaller elements. So maybe you might not see it in the newer website, but you might see them a lot in the older websites that are used web. But that doesn't mean that still people are not using it. People are still using the div elements. So that's just that's what you need to actually learn. You need to learn that you can use the div element to structure part of your web pages. So div element, like other elements of the web pages that we talked about, it has some attributes that you need to consider. One div attribute is basically ID, which can identify a unique area on the web page. and it can distinguish it from other page divisions that you might have. So you can use the div ID equals to menu, for example. That is basically, you can actually use that ID tag to differentiate between each division. So this figure is important to remember, especially when you are designing your website. Remember, we designed the website template using, header, nav, main, and footer. So to get more flexibility in formatting our web pages, we want to add a div element to this wireframe and template of the website. So we want to use this new div element that contain all the other web page elements, including the header, navigation, main, and footer. So we are using something that's div ID equals container. So why do we use the word container? Because this div element can contain all of the web page elements. So that's why we call it a container, that it will contain, that would contain around all the web page elements. It's like a fence. You are putting all these things into this fence. So so we can actually go back to our template and revise the wireframe by using the div ID equals container to have all of those inside it. So I will suggest you, before doing your lab, to go back to your pages. I think it's going to be on page, I'm not sure. I think it's going to be on page 109. So you can add the div element to a website template that you have created in the previous lectures in chapter 2. And you can actually use this div container element. So you can have and see how it will look. Just one thing that I said, like when you add this div ID dash container in there, you want to make sure that you close your div. So you end your div tag after your header, your footer, and your main body. You want to actually close your end tag before you close the body tag. That's something that you just want to remember. Okay, the next thing that we will talk about is the class attributes. So the class attributes, we use them a lot in HTML5. So a class attribute can be applied to more than one div or other HTML elements on the web page. When you have a class attribute, you can provide another level of control over your styling or formatting the specific elements on your web page. So, for example, when you want to have all the paragraph of text appear with the same formatting, you may want to format the first paragraph after a heading to be different from other part of the text. You can define the first paragraph after a heading with a class attribute name, such as, for example, p class first, and this can make it easier to format every paragraph after a heading the same way. So you can also use, for example, it depends. So you can have it, you can use this class attribute differently than the other ones. So in this example here, we have an image tag, and then we have the class attribute value is equip. So you might say, why is it equip? Equip is just the name of the class. Basically, you can actually put any word as a class name, but you want to have some sort of a descriptive name that describes the purpose of the class rather than just having some kind of a random name. So it's important to have your class kind of use it as the class name can be kind of showing the purpose of what your class is going to be. So it's always better to think before you are actually adding a class name. The next thing that we will talk about is adding heading and list. So So some HTML elements are designed to group the information on a web page. The P element groups the text into the paragraph, for example. And the div elements group the element into an area, or maybe we call it the sections. So the other grouping elements are called heading elements and list. Heading elements are there to provide a title or heading before a paragraph of a text or section of a page. So we have different type of heading levels. There are 6 level headings, with level 1 being the most important one, and then the 6th one is the least important one. So it runs from, being the most important one from 1 to 6. Again, to start the tag for heading level 1, you put in the bracket H1, and then you need to close that tag, so you need to end it. So for 2, you can put H2 and then close it like that. So you can actually try them. You put head 1, heading 2, heading 3, and heading 4, so you can see how it would look like. The next type of grouping that we want to discuss is list. So lists structure the text into itemized format. We have unordered list and we have ordered list. So sometimes the unordered list, we call it also a bullet list, that it can display a small graphic called a bullet before each of the items. In unordered list, the bullet items, they can also appear in a sequence. So the tag for it is UL. So you can put the UL tag at the start of the list, and at the end of the list you can close that UL tag. And then to make each item in the list, you are putting it in a bracket LI. So you start with UL, then you put it in a bracket LI. It can be your first item, you close your LI, and you put another LI. It could be second element, and then you will close your LI, and so on. And then at the end you will close your UL. So this is basically how it would look like. So this is unordered list. Ordered list is also called numbered list. Display the information in series using numbers, or it could use letters. An ordered list works well to organize items where sequence matters, because you can have it by number or you can have it by letter. So the sequence of it is matter. So how do we start that? The ordered list, we put it OL. So the OL starts and then the OL ends the list. And then the item inside it is still same as the unordered list, it's LI. So this is the example. So you start with OL, so this is the order list, and then you will have your items, and then you will close that at the end. You need to make sure that you have the end tag. You can also try that and see. So this is going to have the numbering. So remember, the unordered list, it would be like a bullet point, but this could be a numbering or letter. It could be A, B, C, or it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, or something like that. So this is the example of unordered list, the first one, and then the second one is the ordered list. The next list is description list, which contains terms and descriptions. So using a description list, maybe we can use it in order to have a glossary or to list questions and answers. A description list can include the terms and descriptions, or sometimes definition. You can define it as called DL for description list. So it will open as a DL tag and it closes as a DL tag. And each term is marked as DT inside it. So each term with a pair is called DT tag, and then DT tag to close it. Each description, you put DD tag to open it, DD tag to close it. So you either have a DT tag or a DD tag, or you can have both of them in here. So you start with the description list, first term, the DT, if you have a definition, DD, and so on. And then you need to make sure that you close your DL tag. So this is the example here. So you have your DT, the first term, and then that's the head tag, and then your DD is the first definition of that tag. So you can see how the spacing is working out here. So this is DD tag, this is DT, sorry, this is DT tag, this is DD tag, DT tag, DD tag, DT tag, DD tag. So I would suggest you to practice some of these from page 114, so all the way to page 119. And you can practice all these. You can practice the links, you can practice the lists, you can practice the image, you can practice the headings, you can actually practice to put a paragraph in there. So the next thing that we will talk about how to validate the web pages. So in the next video, we will talk more about how to validate the web pages.